good afternoon, and welcome. You're listening live to Heart to Heart, a program which aims to help you understand and to become your loving self. There is some echoing going on, so I'm
Echo, echo,
hearing
echo.
myself. Anyway, with that echo, I'm Dr. Mitra Rashidian. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified sexologist in full-time private practice located in beautiful Encino, California. And this is KMET 1490 AM, ABC News Radio. And I'm here with Dr. Robert Jaffe.
And thank you. I am also a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm also a certified hypnotherapist, and I'm here with my best friend and business partner and colleague, Dr. Rashidian. We're going to share with you today some of what we've learned over many years of study and practice, the goal of which is to be more loving and joyful every day of our lives. Today's radio show is going to be about relationships and going to be about love, and it's going to be about sexuality. And we want to let you know that you do contain everything you need inside of you to be happy, joyous, and free. We think we need a lot more, but we actually don't. With perhaps the exception of good relationships and loving connections between ourselves and others. So welcome to the program.
Exactly. Welcome. And our phone number live here is 951-922-3532. We would like to invite you to please join us and share your comments, questions, concerns, and also tell us how do you feel about our program and what would you like to hear about, and because that will help us to offer you what you like to listen to. And please introduce this program to those that you believe that can benefit from the content. And you can also email us your questions, or you can call us on our private line if you want to. And you can also visit us at our YouTube, heart-2heart.online/YouTube. Okay. So, and there are some free downloads there that you probably can benefit if you wish, and also you can share them with other people. So that was our introduction, and like you said, Dr. Jaffe, today, and thank you for that comments, wonderful, loving comments that you gave me.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate that. You talk about today's program is about relationship, love, and uh, well, love and relationship, things that they go together, right? Everybody hopes that their relationship is a loving one, and they won't have any strain, they won't have any stress, and life is gonna be peachy for them, for the two.
Peachy keen.
Peachy keen for the rest of their lives. And guess what? Ultimately, that's the aim, isn't it?
It is. It is.
That's the aim. That's what we want, and that's what every couple, is desiring for. To go home together to a loving place where they can be themselves and they can have a worry-free environment to connect,
Mm-hmm.
to hold each other's hands or to hold each other in their arms and just whisper kind words, loving words into each other's ear, to have, that deep intimacy, to make love, to just forget about everything that's going outside the home and just to be together.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Absolutely.
And then the earth shakes.
It often does, and it's really the problem is really not the fact that we hurt each other's feelings, because we do hurt each other's feelings. Hopefully unintentionally. Hopefully we don't do it intentionally. But that's not really the problem, is that when we hurt the other person's feelings, I think the biggest problem is that we don't repair it.
Right.
And we don't know how to repair it. We don't know that it can be repaired, but it can. And certainly when we get our feelings hurt and when we're able to repair it, you said it, and I agree with you, that it actually can make the relationship even stronger than it was before the hurt occurred.
Yes.
And so the repairing is a lot of what we need to learn how to do.
And that repairing, It's not by pointing finger at each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's not by saying you're wrong and I'm right or vice versa, right? It's by understanding each other, and when I say this to my clients, they say, huh? What do you mean understanding each other?
Mm.
So the understanding is, and when I explain it to them, they just melt like butter. Seriously, they just love it. When I say it, they automatically, go towards each other and they just hold each other's hand and they just become so loving suddenly together. And I love it when that happens. And I haven't had one, not even one. No, I have had one that hasn't done it yet.
There's always the exception
Right,
that
right,
proves the rule, right?
right, right.
Mm-hmm.
But majority, they just love it when I talk about understanding,
Mm-hmm.
right? So understanding is to see the person inside out and not make it about yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? So understand that this person said something that was hurtful. Understand that this person did an action that was hurtful or was a surprise, or was not anticipated, right? Uh, I explain to them, see it as a reflection of who that person is at that moment,
Mm-hmm.
and don't make it about yourself, right? And actually, they can comment on that. I see you are angry. I see you feel hurt. I see you look sad. I see, whatever the condition is,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And don't even say anything, just be present at the moment. You don't even need to say anything.
Right.
Right.
Just the acknowledgement that the person is being seen,
right,
is a big step towards the healing.
right. And understanding doesn't necessarily mean that we agree with what was said
Mm-hmm.
or what was done, or we accept what was said or what was done.
Right.
And I want to open a parenthesis here. I don't mean by physical abuse. If somebody started to make a physical abuse or emotional abuse, I'm not talking about that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a different category,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I'm talking about when you see somebody is stressful, somebody is upset, somebody forgets to do something, right? That's not about either person. Only it's about the person who is in the action of doing it.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy for many people to turn around the situation and they say, oh, he did this because of me, she did this because of me, right?
Mm-hmm.
As though we are so powerful to initiate something like that in people.
Right.
The reality is we are not.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes.
So just understanding the person, it's a form of communication.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. People in general, I think, don't really understand that we as human beings are energy.
Right.
We are energy, and we have energy fluctuations. Some people call them moods, right? Other people call them emotions or feelings. But these are energy fluctuations that take place within us, and people around us can feel it. They can sense it, they can feel it. Usually they can observe it also, because there's changes that take place in our bodies that other people can observe and notice. But just because somebody notices that your facial expression is different or your body language is different doesn't mean that they know exactly what's going on inside of you, but they can see that something is.
Right.
And so it's our job to stay mindful of what it is that's going on inside of us, and then to clue other people in so that they can understand us.
And not make assumption about what's going on.
Well, that's the big word, right? Assumptions.
Assumption.
Yeah.
Now don't do mind reading. Don't do assumption that you may actually have a thought that actually is accurate,
Mm-hmm.
right? But still, it's not our place to say it.
Right. Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if we do know what's going on inside of the other person, it's much more respectful to ask rather than to tell.
Right.
And oftentimes in couples, that's a big sticking point, because the other person, you're telling the other person, well, you're angry with me, and the other person is going, well, I'm not actually feeling that. But the person who said you're angry with me is convinced that they're right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have seen that this among couples,
Mm-hmm.
and you call it respect, and I think that's the wonderful word for what we're describing. Respecting each other and accepting and understanding each other at where we are and in the moment, and not add our own interpretation to it and assume or do mind reading that what's going on is about me, or in fact I have done something that now it becomes about me. Did I do something wrong? Did I say something wrong? Right? So, and that's, it doesn't make us feel good about ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to help the person who is going through the struggle at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so imagine one struggle there that's not being talked about. So many assumptions and negative feelings that causes that's happening in another person. These are not good combination.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's when you're always into yourself. You never pay attention. You don't talk to me. I don't know what the hell is wrong with you. Well, why don't you leave me alone? You don't have to always know what's going on in my head. You always want to control me.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the conversation that happens on both sides. And
Yes.
then what's the result? World War III.
Well, it's human nature to defend when we're attacked.
Right.
I think it's important for our listeners to recognize that when we are defending ourselves with the other person, our defense is perceived by the other person as an offense.
Right.
So when I'm defending myself, the other person feels that I'm attacking them, and then the communication goes sideways. And so it's important to not defend, but simply to try to understand. There's two types of listening. One is to respond. You listen to respond, and the other is to listen to understand.
Right.
And listening to understand helps you to connect in a deeper way. Yes. Listening to respond is sort of awaiting your turn to say what you want to say, but not really paying attention to what the other person is really trying to communicate.
Exactly. And when the person who's struggling realizes that his or her partner understands the situation and is not being pushy to find out what's going on,
mm-hmm.
the person actually feels much safer and much calmer and feels more confident to speak up and to share.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't, that's okay too.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
But then again, the message that we're putting here on the table is that, guess what? I'm here for you.
Mm-hmm.
30
Whenever
seconds.
you want to talk,
30
I'm
seconds.
here for you, and then we can talk.
Right.
Right. So our commercial break is coming up, and after that, we're going to talk about some of the stressful circumstances that can actually impact a couple's relationship.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay.
And we're looking forward to you guys contacting us and letting us know how we're doing.
951-922-3532.
Talk to you soon.
4 p.m. Please join us. Thank you. Welcome back from our commercial break. Dr. Mitra and Dr. Robert here at the Heart-to-Heart program at KMET 1490 AM ABC News Radio. For those of you who are just tuning in, our discussion in this segment is about relationship and how stress and strain can impact that and what we can do about it. I would like to invite you to call us 951-922-3532 live and share your concerns, your questions. Also, you can visit us at YouTube, Heart-2-Heart.online/YouTube. And very soon we're going to be on Facebook Live, by the way.
Pretty soon.
Pretty soon. So that's coming up fast. So, Dr. Robert, we're talking about, how We need to understand each other versus assuming about what's going on with each other.
Right, and we all know the euphemism for assume, right? When you ASSUME, right? You make an ass out of you and me. But let's face it, as human beings, we do make assumptions.
Yeah.
And that's just going to be the way it is because that's part of being human. We make assumptions, and in a way we need to make assumptions, otherwise we wouldn't have any stability in our life, right? I mean, if my client comes in and they're going to assume that I'm here, if they're not going to assume that I'm here, then they're not going to come in, right? So there are a lot of assumptions that we make that are okay, but in intimate relationships, we have to be careful because if we assume things and we don't check them out, then often we're working on what we believe is a fact rather than what the actual fact is.
Exactly, and usually that's what's being perceived as the fact is nothing but our childhood experiences.
Mm-hmm. Exactly,
right?
exactly.
So we can go into psychodynamic and dig into that and talk about that, or we can just stay with stress and what are some of the stress in the relationship.
Yeah, either road is fine. Yeah.
Because the reality is, how we are growing up has a profound impact in our adulthood relationship, right? We sort of mirror everything that we experienced beforehand.
And some people don't understand, why do I need to talk about my childhood? And sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. But oftentimes, what we've learned in the first 10 years of our life significantly impacts our views of ourselves, of other people, of the same sex, of the opposite sex. And those views, unless we at some point decide to challenge them, they become the ideas that motivate us to action. And then whatever we do behaviorally in the world, of course, we earn that. We earn positive things or we earn negative things depending upon what our behavior is in the world. And our behavior stems from things that we learned often early on that were never examined. So most of our parents did the best they could for us and tried to help us and gave us a lot of positive information. But our parents, like us, were imperfect. And when we saw our parents, we were very little, and we looked at our parents when we were 1, 2, 3, 4 years old as gods. And so we absorbed a lot of their viewpoints of things. Their viewpoints may have been spoken, or they may have just been ideas that they had about the assumptions that they made that they got from their parents that they unconsciously passed down to us.
Exactly, and one of the unconscious passing to us actually includes our communication style with each other.
Right. So there's a little story I'm going to say, and then I want to get back to that. And I've told you this, and I've told this to some of my clients, and it exemplifies what we're talking about when we talk about things that we've learned from our parents, and how we repeat things, and what the unconscious actually does. So there's a man and a woman, and they're both newlyweds, and the woman is cooking a roast in the oven, but before she puts the roast in the pan, she cuts off both ends of the roast, and then she puts the roast in the pan. She seasons it and puts it in the oven. And the husband's looking at her, and he said, "Well, I'm curious. Why did you cut off both ends of the roast before you put it in the pan and seasoned it and put it in the oven?" And she thinks for a moment, and she goes, "Well, I'm not sure, but I know my mom always did it that way, so that's the way I do it." And he says, "Oh, interesting." So the next week they're at the mother's house, and same thing. She's making a roast. She cuts off both ends of the roast, seasons it, puts it in the pan, and puts it in the oven. And the man is watching her, and he says, "I have to ask you now. I've seen both your daughter, my wife, and you cut off both ends of the roast. And why do you do that before you put it in the pan and season it and put it in the oven?" And she thinks for a moment and thinks and says, "I'm not really sure, but my mom always used to do it that way."
So now they go to grandma.
So now they go to grandma's. and they at grandma's, and they see the grandma doing the same thing. She cuts off both ends of the roast, puts it in the pan, seasons it, puts it in the oven. Now the man is very, very curious, and he's like, I see. I have to ask you. I've seen now your daughter, my wife's mother, and my wife do the same thing. They cut off both ends of the roast before they put it in the pan and season it and put it in the oven. Why do they do that? And she thinks for a moment and thinks and thinks, and she says, I'm not sure why they do that. The reason I do it is because my pan is too small. And that sort of exemplifies why do therapists go about try to understand the childhood, right?
Right.
Because we learn so many things, and that of course is a clear example of where we just assumed that there was a good reason, and we followed in their footsteps, right?
Exactly.
And until we begin to examine it and recognize that the reason the grandma did it was because her pan was too small, we keep doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I have a couple now that so they're struggling because they want to get married, they want to have a child, and the wife is okay with all of that, but the partner, the male partner, is not okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
His belief is just circulating around the idea that his parents were really horrible parents, like he says, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
They went through divorce, right? He felt abandoned. All of his sisters went through divorce, not even once, but some of them more than twice, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of their friends that they have right now, they are either been divorced before or they're struggling with their relationships right now. And then those who have children are even in a worse shape. So why would he want to ruin the relationship that they have in the name of marriage?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, he is so fixated on the idea that if he gets married, he's going to land into the divorce situation. And if they have a child, God forbid, it's going to be worse than everybody else, right? So he has this OCD of going to both sides of extreme. Right?
What do you mean both sides?
So if he's good, he's really, really in a good mood. And when he's, goes into the negative, he goes all the way into the deep part of negativity.
I see what you mean.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then when we process this, it's hard for him to see that his mindset is so fixated on the idea that marriage and child equals to, unhappiness, to divorce.
Right. Yeah.
Because this is the only model that he has seen. This is the model he has grown up with. And this is the model that he keep attracting people around themselves or among those group of people.
Mm-hmm.
So why would he
put himself through that?
Why would he put himself through that?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense.
It makes sense as long as you believe that that's the way it is for everyone, which is another thing that we take our parents as models, and we think, oh, if our parents are this way, then most people are this way.
Exactly. So that's exactly, matches the example that you just said. Everybody who's making a pot roast, they have to cut both ends.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
The reality is that if the grandma did it, is because she didn't have a big pan big enough for the roast that she had.
Right. But it was never stated, and so they thought that there must be another reason, a good reason, and so they just followed suit. Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. So even getting to that point, of okay, now we know why grandma cut both and why she cut both ends of the pot roast. Right. Still, they don't know how to adjust themselves to a bigger pan.
Mm-hmm.
So they continue to cut. When they buy a roast, they continue to cut both ends anyway, even if they have a big enough pans to to be able to hold the actual size of the meat.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Yeah, but what one of the tasks really is to understand how that model works for you in your own life. What things have you copied? And so we either comply with what our parents taught us, or sometimes we rebel against what they taught us because we didn't like it. Either one is still dependent upon our parents' model. We either comply with or depend on, we either comply with or we rebel against. but either one of those may not be what's right for us. We
Right.
haven't discovered that what's right for us may not have anything to do with what our parents did or didn't do.
Right. Well, to get to this point, that's why therapy takes a much longer time than people anticipate,
Mm-hmm.
right? So in this case, actually, this individual is following, the complying with the model, right?
Yes.
The complying with the model is that, his mom is leaving and left. Father got divorced and married somebody else. Sisters got divorced and they remarried, and then they got divorced and they remarried. So he's avoiding it so this thing doesn't happen to him.
Of course.
Right.
As though it's going to.
As though it's going
as
to.
though it's going to.
Right.
As though he doesn't have any choice in the matter.
Right.
And what we say in therapy is that awareness brings choice, right? Once you're aware that the reason that she did it was because the pan was too small, now you can still do it. I mean, there's nobody that's going to stop you from cutting off both ends of it. You can still do it. However, now you realize, oh, that's the reason she did it, and now it's possible for me to choose a different way if I want to.
Right. So then here comes the issue of the big umbrella of can I trust myself that I can do that?
Mm-hmm.
And what does it mean to me if I'm taking this direction of constructing my own unique direction, right? So that's the subconscious here. How am I going to stay connected with my parents?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Right. That's the emotional cord that we're talking about.
Yes. Yes. And then that depends upon, well, number one, if your parents are still alive, then that becomes an actual issue that you may struggle with.
Right.
If I'm not complying with them, are they still going to approve of me?
But that's emotional thinking, right? That's
yes.
in our head, not actual in practice.
But then there are parents who sort of demand that of their children. It's and give the child the message, it's my way or the highway, right? And even if the child is now an adult and they're no longer living with the parent, they may still feel as though they can't disappoint the parent, and so they continue to comply with the parent's wishes, even if it's not right for them.
Exactly. Yes. And then here, what you and I have talked a few times before about how negative emotions can become a self-sabotaging, situation, right? So this way I can already see that how he's actually walking away from his existing relationship. And, his partner is completely clueless of that.
Right.
Or even if she's not clueless, she's sensing something, but she hasn't been strong enough yet to confront him with that.
Right. And I'm also thinking, with your couple, that perhaps, if he believes, let's say even not just about marriage, but about all relationships, that you can be with a person for a certain period of time, but eventually the relationship is going to end, then he might end it by way of saying to himself, well, I'm not going to wait until she kicks me out. I'm going to pull the plug first so that I'm in control and I don't get my feelings hurt.
Yes. And then I don't know if I want to take that direction, but then again, yeah, it may be, sort of a paradoxical intervention.
Paradoxical intervention.
Yes.
Meaning
that you put them in a situation that they want to be, that they're afraid to go to.
Oh.
Okay. And then so they can examine it. Okay, you're in it now. You can say bye, or you can say hello and stay there.
So yeah. So well, basically, what you're talking about, though, going back to assumptions and understanding, is that what we all really want in our relationships is for the other person to get us.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
To get us to really say, oh, I get not only what you do, but I get why you do it. I not only get that you believe this, but I get why you believe it, and I understand, and I'm not going to be judging you. Exactly. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm going to have the same beliefs or I need to have the same beliefs.
Right.
Right.
Right. And that's the key point here that I like to kind of open up. A relationship doesn't mean possessing each other.
Mm-hmm.
A relationship actually promotes healthy individuation, healthy personal growth.
Right.
And we get to know each other within relationship. We
Mm-hmm.
grow within relationship.
Yes.
So we can't just go on and control each other, right? Control takes away from intimacy, actually destroys intimacy. I take that back. Doesn't make either person feel good about themselves, because even for the person who becomes the controller, right, to assume that role all the time, it's a constant struggle.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And people do not, even though people believe that they need to be told, people also, when they become adults, resent being told.
30
Right.
seconds.
Exactly.
So what we need to do is we need to learn to express ourselves assertively, but not to demand from our partners.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk more about this after our commercial break.
After our commercial break, we'll be back, and we're still waiting for somebody to call or let us know what you think.
951-922-3532.
Talk to you soon. Yeah, see you there.
Welcome back from our commercial break. Dr. Mitra and Dr. Robert here at Heart-to-Heart program at KMET 1490 AM ABC News Radio. So we have a discussion about relationship stress and strain, and how we can acknowledge each other's differences and how to continue in that path of personal growth together. By keeping our individual, perspective, even though we are in relationship. And when I say that also to my clients, when I see them that they are so negatively enmeshed together, and they don't just leave each other any room to breathe. Oh my God, and that's such an important factor, right? They think that everything has to be the same, everything has to be done at the same time, everything has to be just or one needs to control the other one so that everything goes smoothly and all of that. And when I say give each other personal space, and they say, we are a couple. I said, yes, you are a couple, but you're not possessing each other.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And that meaning is sometimes is hard to digest. Right. And I think it's important that we acknowledge that sometimes we need that alone time for each other. We need that mental break from each other.
Well, I think our feelings fluctuate about everything.
Right.
They fluctuate about our children. They fluctuate about our workmates. They fluctuate about our spouses or boyfriends or girlfriends, and they fluctuate about ourselves. Our feelings fluctuate. And I think that taking a break from each other is great, but you first have to know what you need.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, what you need, and also feel secure in your relationship.
And yes. I was going to say, and second, you have to feel secure enough to say, this is what I need, knowing that your partner wants you to get what you need.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And of course, what you need, we're not talking about going and have another relationship. We're not talking about those things.
Well, but now that you brought that up, going to have another relationship is something that you can either hide as a secret,
right.
But if you're having those thoughts, then what we have learned in psychology is that which you repress comes back to you.
Yes.
In a form of behavior.
Yes.
So if you are wanting out of the relationship, or maybe you do want to open up the relationship to another person, that's a hard thing to bring up. But if you don't bring it up, you're going to start having some resentment inside of you,
right.
as though the other person is controlling you and keeping you from having what you want,
yes.
if it's something that you really want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, couples, they have different way of maintaining their relationships. Some couples, they're just looking at monogamy, which majority of populations are.
Mm-hmm.
And some people may want to have, different type of relationships, like they have this agreement to take a break from each other.
Right.
Right. Altogether, that along with infidelity together combined is not exceeding than 15 to 20% of population who are staying as a couple with each other.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So we know that that rate is significantly low. I mean,
well, it's lower than the average.
Than the average.
Yeah.
Right. So
but
we're not suggesting that people do that and as a normal relationship. Right. I mean, okay, maybe I can't say that from your look,
yeah.
But who's to define what is normal, right?
Well, that plus, what you want is important.
Yes.
What you want is important. And so if you're with someone and you want something different than what they want, you can either have the affair, which then usually, if you're a good person, you usually feel some guilt about it because you're intentionally keeping the secret.
And that guilt will manifest itself in the relationship.
Exactly. Or you can say, I'm unhappy, and this is what I'm thinking, and see if the other person is open to that or not open to that, because I think being true to yourself is the most important thing.
Right.
And so if what you want is something that you believe your partner isn't going to want, and you do it because you know or you believe that your partner is going to be against it, the relationship is now taken a course where it's going to be very, very difficult to ever have trust between the two of you, if and when it comes out, and oftentimes it does.
It does, yes. And when one person feels unhappy in the relationship, it's the best thing is to talk about unhappiness rather than taking a secretive action.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Because what makes them unhappy can be resolved, can be identified, can be understood, can be discussed, some action can be taken for that.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Rather than, if it's secretly, even secret relationship, it may give a person momentum, enjoyment, right? But ultimately that enjoyment, is combined with the, again, subconscious fear, subconscious, kind of feeling of guilty and shame, which realistically doesn't give the person the sense of ultimate happiness that they're looking for.
Right. Right. So yeah. So you saw my face before because you were saying it's not a normal thing, and I just want to say normal is really average, and the average person, because there's a lot more people who go for monogamy than go for open marriages or having threesomes or things like or wife swapping or things like that. Then you would say it's abnormal in that it's not average.
Yeah.
That's and I think that's what you were referring to, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, historically, monogamy has been the name of the game.
Yes.
Monogamy relationships.
Yeah.
Right?
For the majority of people.
For the majority of people, they are parts of the world that actually, a man can have multiple wives.
Correct.
Right. So that's normal for their region.
Correct.
Right. So it depends on how within each nation, within each culture, we define what is normal for that group of people.
Right.
Right. And there are group of people that they have different types of relationships. Right.
When usually, we didn't do it today, but usually when we start the program, we talk about that we're born into the world as our loving, authentic, true selves. And one of the qualities that we say we come into the world with is honesty, that we don't know how to lie when we come into the world, that's learned.
That's why we say the kids will always say the truth.
Well, yeah, the kids will,
hear the truth from kids.
Right, because they haven't learned yet about lying. But the reason I'm bringing that up is because our authentic true self is so it's the most important thing of value to us, is that we stay connected with who we really are. And when people say, well, who I am changes, I'd say, well, aspects of you change. Certainly your body changes. Your beliefs about things may change, but there's an essential you.
Yeah.
That when you look, I'm 71. When I look at a picture of me when I was 9 years old, there's not a cell in that body, in that 9-year-old body, that now exists in the 71-year-old body, and yet he and I are still have the same. We still have the same authentic true self, even though my body is totally different and I've learned a lot, and my personality is more expansive, but who I was then is still at the level of the spirit, the same as I am now.
Exactly. Yes. Right.
And that authentic true self, I think, is something that when we betray that becomes problematic for us in order to feel good and loving and whole in the world.
And with that, imagine that when two people come together, they each bring that childhood of that child within, and the childhood experiences and the way that they perceive life, and together.
Mm-hmm.
So we have two different perspectives, which each one is a combination of intergenerational perspectives.
Right. Right.
Right.
Intergenerational, meaning we learned from our parents, who learned from their parents, who learned from their parents.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that we should follow everything that they taught us.
And that's why my focus is on individuality.
Mm-hmm.
So within the relationship, we need to feel safe enough to become who we are.
Right.
Not to continue to carry the path of our many generations in the past that we have. We are the end result of that. That's whomever we are in our lives. We actually have several generations living in us, in our subconscious, right?
Right.
To the point that we haven't found ourselves yet.
Right.
However, the beauty of relationship is that we actually, with feeling secure about each other, feeling love between each other, we can become that individual that we were born, as to be, with all the qualities that comes with us as a human being. And this time we can just let them flourish, let them grow, glow and grow.
And the encouragement and the permission that one partner gives another is the most valuable gift we can give.
Yes.
I want you to be your best self.
Right.
And even to the point where if your best self needs to go in a different direction than me, I may be sad about it, but I still want that for you.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And and that happens, and that happens. And realistically, we can't keep a relationship when one is trying to fly out.
Right.
Right, for whatever reason they have.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So the best that we can do is understand them again.
Mm-hmm.
We may not agree with them leaving, right? But if that's what they want, right?
Yeah.
And if we love them and we support them, then that's what they're entitled, and we
that's what they have
them.
to do in order to follow their own path.
Right. And who knows? Some come back, some don't.
True. True. Yeah. And my belief also is that if one person needs to leave, then the other person needs to recognize that the relationship isn't right for both of them.
Right.
Because you don't want to be in a relationship with someone who isn't fully present.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And fully present, that by itself is another important part of relationship.
Mm-hmm.
We can be next to each other and not connected and not be present.
Right.
Because one is, has his or her mindset wandering somewhere else.
Exactly.
With different issues. And I'm not talking about infidelity here. I'm talking about life issues. I'm talking about what's going on at the moment with people. And then if that frequency becomes more than average, then it becomes problematic, right?
Yes.
And it is at then that, we need to take a look at realistically at our relationship. Are we holding each other back, or are we helping each other grow?
Exactly. And the relationships that are the most, the ones that we look up to, the ones that we want to emulate, are the relationships where each person cares enough about the other person to want the best for them, even if it doesn't include that partner.
That partner. I remember the movie, the latest movie that I saw about Sex and the City, right? The character Samantha,
yes,
told her boyfriend that she loves him. I mean, they had this amazing 5-6 year relationship, hot romance and all of that. And then she realized that he had to pay attention to his career, and suddenly there were more important things than she, happened in their life. And then she realized that she's only following him, and there is nothing for herself, right? So she told him that, she loves him, but also she loves herself.
Yeah.
And she sees that he needs to go after her passion, after his passion.
Yeah.
Yes. So she can't just wait there,
yes,
for him to come back, and who knows if he would have come back, right? So I think that was a very powerful scene that I saw in that movie.
Yes. And that brings up the idea of self-love.
Yes.
Right. And I know we're just about out of time now, so
yes, we are.
We can talk about that in terms of codependency and self-love.
Tomorrow.
Well, tomorrow or next week, whenever we come back to it.
30 seconds.
Because I think the idea of self-love is one that's confusing to a lot of people.
Very much so.
Yes.
Very much so. So thank you for listening to our show today. I'm inviting you to please join us tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for another episode of Relationships, Trauma, Codependency, and Addictions. And next Thursday, same time, 3 p.m. for another episode of Relationship and Love and Romance and Human Sexuality. Until then, don't forget that all you need is love.
Love, love, love. That's where it's at.
Have a wonderful afternoon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This is 1490 AM KMET, Banning, Beaumont, Redlands.